Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Hello everyone, I am Dr. Harmeet Kaur from Chitkara University, Punjab. So today we will be starting with the lecture 3, which is on the topic formulation of research problems, objectives and hypotheses. So let us see the learning outcome. We will be studying in this lecture and we will try to answer these questions. What is a research problem? And how to formulate a research problem and research questions. What are the characteristics of a good research problem? What are the research aims and objectives? What is a hypothesis? And what are the different types of hypotheses? So let us start first with the research problem. So what is a research problem? It is a problem or issue, or you can say it is an enigmatic, perplexing or troubling condition. So any troubling condition which is related to our nursing practice, in the clinicals, in the community or in the education, so that will become a problem. And through the research study, we try to get an answer or a solution to that problem or solution. So this was the basic definition of a research study also, where we talked about that we follow a systematic process to get answer to the problem or issues. Now, how do we select the topic? This is particularly a difficult phase for a novice researcher, particularly undergraduate students, and even if I talk to the regarding the postgraduate students, they also find it difficult to select the topic. But majorly, whenever we think of a research topic, first of all, we always have something broad in our mind, like we think of a broad problem, issue or phenomena. For example, I may have in my mind that I want to do a study on pain among patients, right? So now this is a very broad problem, right? And then I have to think of exactly what do I want to study regarding pain in patients. Now, pain may be related to any procedure, pain may be related to post-surgical period, or it can be pain related to certain conditions. For example, cancer patients, they may have the pain. So you may think that what exactly you want to study. So that will become your research topic. So here, for example, the student decides that he will be studying the pain intensity among cancer patients after chemotherapy. Then we move forward to the research questions, that what type of questions you want to answer by doing this research study on the selected research topic. So research question can be 1, 2 or more than 2. Then we come to the specific objectives, specifically that how these questions will be answered. So what type of activities you will be doing so that you can achieve or you can find the answer to your questions. So you can see that we are moving from a broad problem or issue, and then we are narrowing down it to the topic, then again narrowing down it to the questions, and then to the specific objectives. So in all types of the quantitative studies, we follow this type of process for the research topic selection. Okay, now let us move towards the basic concepts of research problem or problem statement or research questions. Now, what is a research problem? I have already told you that this is a troubling condition or any issue which you find while working in the clinical area or in the community area. Then what is a problem statement? Problem statement articulates the problems to be addressed and indicates the need for a study. So it means here you try to find out that whatever problem you are studying, what is the need for that study. So we try to address that particular area, like in the background you can write that this is the prevalence or incidence of this particular phenomena, and what is the need of the research study. So all these things are expressed in the problem statement. Then what are the research questions? Research questions are the specific queries, specific questions which researcher wants to answer in addressing the research problem. So here, based upon your topic, you may have specific questions for which you want to answer. Then research aims or objectives. These are the specific accomplishments the researcher hopes to achieve by conducting the study. So research questions are in the form of question, interrogative form. But in the research objectives, we try to write what type of outcomes, what type of expected outcomes the researcher wants to achieve by conducting the study. So basic concepts now we have done for the research problem, problem statement, research questions, and research aims or objectives. Now let us move forward and let us see what are the sources of research problem. As I have already told you that mostly the students find it very difficult to find a research topic, and sometimes they don't have any idea that from which sources they can get an idea for the research problem or the research topic. So let us talk about these sources. First one is experience and clinical field. So whenever you are working in the clinical area, you may come across number of areas or number of activities. While doing those activities, you may have number of questions in your mind. So if you are curious enough, you can get a very good source for your research problem through your clinical area activities and through your clinical experience. Second one is the nursing literature. As an undergraduate student, you should make it a habit to go to the library and study the available literature. And particularly from research point of view, you should go and read the journals to keep yourself updated that what type of research is being conducted and what is the new evidence in the field of nursing. And this nursing literature can be a very good source of research problem for you. Then theory. There are number of theories available in the nursing domain, and also a number of theories in the psychology domain which we use. So such theories can be used, and these theories can be tested in real time. These can be tested for their applicability in the clinical area or in the community area or in the education. Social issues. Sometimes at a time we may have number of social issues. For example, nowadays, just one example, we are really talking about sexual harassment at workplace, sexual harassment of students in a university. So sometimes these social issues can also give us a good idea for a research problem. Then idea from the external sources. External sources such as faculty members, experts, clinical experts or education experts or government agencies or some nursing organizations. From there you can get very good ideas for your research problem. So let us talk about each of this source in detail. First of all is experience and clinical field. So nurses' everyday clinical experience is a rich source of idea for research problems. As I have already told you that when you are working in the clinical, everyday experience, everyday activities can give you really good idea for the research problems. You can get these questions that why are these things done this way? Why particular nursing procedures are done in this way only? Why can't we change it? What information would help to solve this problem? Sometimes we may see that some problems are coming again and again. Then you can think that what type of information is needed so that we can solve this problem. What is the process by which this situation arose? Maybe particular process might be used which might be resulting in certain situations or certain problems. What would happen if we change our way of doing the things? Can we solve these problems? If we change certain rules and regulations in our area, can we solve this problem? So such type of questions if you get, then some of these questions can become your idea for the research problem. So whenever you're working in the clinical area, you have to be curious enough. Don't just keep on following whatever is happening in the clinical experience. Be curious. Try to think ahead. Try to think out of the box so that you can change a certain nursing behaviors or nursing actions so that patients' outcomes can be improved. Another important thing is that clinical fieldwork before a study may also help to identify clinical problem. Like in the last lecture, we discussed the clinical fieldwork in the research process, particularly in the conceptual phase of the research process. So if you do a clinical fieldwork before a study, you can really get to know about number of clinical problems. You can go and talk to the seniors. You can talk to senior nurses. You can talk to doctors, and you may ask them that what type of problems they are finding while working day to day. They might be facing some problems. For that they want answer through the research study. Then you can help them in getting those answers. Or when you are in the clinical fieldwork, you can see what is happening, you can observe, and based upon those observations sometimes you get good idea for the research study. I would like to give you some tips that during the clinical experience, how can you get the ideas for your research problem or topic? You need to watch for recurring problems and see if you can discern a pattern in situations that lead to the problem. So sometimes you observe that few problems are occurring again and again, and you see that there is a certain pattern which is followed and that is resulting into the problem. So you have to see that what are these recurring problems and what are the factors affecting. So such type of observation can help you in getting a research topic for your study. Second one is, think about aspects of your work that are irksome, frustrating, or do not result in intended outcomes. Then you try to identify factors contributing to the problem that could be changed. So sometimes we perform some activities, but we feel those activities as frustrating because we feel that we are not getting the positive outcomes which we have intended. So then you try to find out that which are the factors which can contribute or which are contributing to the problem, and how we can change this, how we can change those particular activities so that we can get the positive outcomes. Another tip is that you can critically examine some decisions you make in performing your functions. Are these decisions based upon tradition, or are they based on systematic evidence that support their efficacy. So whether the whatever decisions you are taking based upon the patient's condition, whether those decisions are based upon some research study evidence or are based upon only tradition, and you can think of doing some effectiveness or experimental studies through which you can see that whatever activities or decisions you are taking in the clinical area, what type of health outcomes these are producing. These are some examples of the research areas or research problems which you can get while working in the clinical area. For example, you may observe and you may have a question that why do many patients complain of being tired after being transferred from a coronary care unit to a progressive care unit? So you can have this question in your mind that why the patient, when once they are shifted from CCU to the progressive care unit, why they complain of being tired, and you can try to study that. Another one is why is handling taking over time so chaotic in a nursing home? So you may see that how can we improve this handling taking over time so that this can be more systematic and this should not be frustrating. Then what would happen if visiting hours in an intensive care unit were changed from 10 minutes every hours to a regularly scheduled hours existing in the rest of the hospital? So you can think that if visiting hours are changed, what type of results you are getting. So these are some examples of the research ideas which typically you can get from your clinical experience that can result in your research problem, which can take the form of your research study. Now coming to another source of research problem, that is nursing literature. I already told you that as students you should have a habit to read the literature. So beginning nurse researchers can benefit from regularly reading nursing journals, either clinical specialty journal or research journal. So if you have the habit of reading the literature in the journals, then you can really benefit because you keep yourself updated. You get to know that what are the clinical trends happening, what are the new guidelines coming up, whether your hospital is following that, whether you need to do the research study in that area. So you can really benefit from reading. Even if you read the non-research articles, that can also be helpful because it helps you in alerting to clinical trends and issues of importance in clinical setting. So you get to know that whatever clinical trends are there and what are the issues of importance in the clinical setting which need the research. Further, published research reports also suggest some problem areas. So it may suggest that these are the problem areas which are there in the clinical area or community area or in the nursing education or in nursing administration, and you can think of doing a study on that area. Further, the research articles also give in their discussion section that what are the further recommended area for the investigation, what are the further future researches needed in this area. So these all particular like discussion, the recommendation part of the research reports can give you idea and can act as a source for your research topic or problem. Now for the nursing literature also I have some tips to give you. Whenever you are reading the published research articles, see for the inconsistencies. Sometimes you see that maybe multiple studies might have been done on a particular area, but all the studies might be giving the different results. You may think that why these inconsistencies are there. Is there any difference in the methodology which they have used, or it is because of the small sample size, or they have written something in their limitations that these were the gaps or these were the limitations in their studies. So then you can see those inconsistencies and you can try to do a new study with the sound methodology so that you can add to the evidence base, which is really a quality evidence for the nursing practice. Another tip is that replication of study can also be done. Replication means you can do the same study which have been published. or somebody else has done that study. So replication can be done for the studies because the study might have been done in another area, another setting, another population. So you can think of doing the same study in your particular hospital or in your community. So you can replicate the same study in the different setting and on the different population. Third one is recommendations for future studies. The published articles always provide the information about the future studies which are recommended. So you should always read the recommendation section of the published research articles, and through the recommendations for the future studies, you can get a good idea for your research problem or topic. Next, we will study about the social issues as the source of research problem. Sometimes topics can be adopted from more global, contemporary social and political issues of relevance to healthcare communities. Many a times we can get an idea for our research problem from certain social or political issues, but which are having some relevance to our healthcare. So we can think of those areas. For example, domestic violence or elderly abuse. So these particular issues are social issues, but they may have relevance to our healthcare. Further, the political issues, for example, affordability of healthcare, because many a times there are some minority people who may not be able to access or afford the healthcare, and how can how that particular thing might be affecting their health. So such issues can give us idea for the research topics. So here also examples like minority health problems, access to healthcare, culturally sensitive interventions, or other social issues related to health, such as sexual harassment problems and domestic violence. So these are basically social problems, social issues, but these are having the implications for healthcare. So such issues or such problems can also give us idea for our research problem. Another important source is theory. Sources of the research problem may lie in the theories and conceptual schemes that have been developed in the nursing and related discipline. There are a number of nursing theories, there are a number of theories in the psychology domain which are useful whenever we are taking care of the patients in the clinical area or in the community area. So we can think of a theory which can be applied in our clinical area or in the community area, and which can result in better behavioral outcomes or better health outcomes of our patients. To be useful in nursing practice, theories must be tested through research for their applicability to hospital units, clinics, classrooms, and other nursing environments. So we can see that whether these nursing theories are applicable where we are working. For example, if I give you an example of the theory positive reinforcement. So positive reinforcement theory says that if you reinforce a positive behavior by rewarding or incentive, then such behaviors are repeated. So we can use this theory on the patients. Particularly, we can take any one disease, for example, diabetes. So you may see that diabetes patients, they do not change the food behavior, or they do not change their diet as we always teach them whenever they are discharged, or in the OPDs also we teach them, but why don't they follow? So we can use this behavioral theory and we can try to apply it on the diabetic patients, that if we are positively reinforcing them, is it changing? For example, there are many studies on mHealth, mobile health, where time to time message goes to the patients to what type of diet they have to take in a day, and if they are taking care of everything, then they are getting the positive messages that yes, well done, you have taken care of your diet, like that. So some colorful messages, or whenever they are coming to the OPD, they are given some cards or some stars or some type of incentives, and through this positive reinforcement, studies have shown that patients change their behavior. So such type of theories we can test that whether these apply to the practice or not through the research study. Next one is ideas from external sources. Now you can get the idea for your research problem through the faculty. Faculty sometimes might be working on certain research areas already, and they might be needing some research assistance. So you may join them in conducting that research study, and you can get an idea for your research problem. Another thing is government and funding agencies. Many a times there is a call for the research problems by number of funding agencies in the healthcare, by the government, particularly community-based researches, outcome researches, action researches, so that how the health of the people can be improved. So sometimes if you keep on reading the call for research problems online or in the newspaper, you can get an idea, you can apply to them, and you can do a research study on the areas which they have mentioned. Third one is peers. Sometimes when you are working in the clinical area, maybe your own peers may talk to you about certain problems which they are facing in the clinical area or in the community area, and through that you can get idea for the research problem. Fourth is advisor or mentors. Particularly at undergraduate and postgraduate levels, you get the advisors, guides or mentors who mentor you for your research study. So they may sometimes might be interested in certain research areas, and they may ask you to conduct the study in particular area. So they can give you idea for the research problem on which you can conduct a research study. Fourth one is priority areas shared by nursing organizations. Many a times there are certain nursing organizations. For example, in our nursing, there is Nursing Research Society of India. We have Trained Nurses Association of India. We have Indian Nursing Council. Then international organizations like Sigma Theta Tau organization, Sigma Theta Tau Honor Society of Nursing. So sometimes they give the priority areas that nurses must conduct the research study on these areas because these particular problems are prevalent in the clinical areas or these are prevalent in the community. So to improve the health outcomes, the nurses should conduct the research studies on these priority areas. So if you go and study those priority areas, through those priority areas you really get good idea for the research problem, and such type of research topics can be really of great significance to our nursing practice. So these were the sources of the research problem. Now let us talk about what is a good research problem. Sometimes through the sources which we have studied, you may get an idea and you select a research problem, but whether whatever research problem you have selected, is it a good research problem? Do you know that it will be a significant problem for our nursing practice? So let us see that what are the criteria for a good research problem. First one is significance of problem. Significance of problem means you have to see that whether the problem which you have selected to be studied, whether it is significant to nursing, particularly nursing practice. So whatever research study you are going to do, will it be improving our knowledge base? Will it be improving our nursing practice? Will it be improving the outcomes of our clients or patients? So that is very, very important. Evidence from the study should have potential of contributing meaningful to the nursing knowledge. So nursing knowledge base should be improved through the evidence which you will be producing from your research study. So you need to ask the questions from yourself that is this problem an important one? Is this really an important problem which you are facing in the clinical area or in the community area, or from disease point of view, this is a disease which really needed to be studied? Will patient, nurses, or the broader healthcare community or society benefit from evidence that will be produced? So whatever evidence you will be producing from your research study, who will be benefited? Whether patients will be benefited, nurses will be benefited, or broader healthcare community will be benefited. If there is no benefit to any of these, then that research study is of no use. Third one is, will the results lead to practical applications? So whatever results you are getting, can these be applied in our practice, or simply these will be there on the paper? So you need to ask this question also. Fourth one is, will the study help to formulate or alter nursing practices or policies? So if any evidence you are getting, will it be resulting in some changes in the practices or policies? In a hospital or larger local governments, will they be changing something in their policies and procedures based upon the evidence which you will be bringing from your research study? If the answer to all these questions is no, then it means this particular study is of no use, so you should abandon the problem. Always try to ask these questions and then you finalize your research problem. Another important point to see for a good research problem is researchability. Whether the problem which you are thinking, is it researchable or not? So you have to see that all the problems which come in your mind may not be amenable to study through scientific investigations. So everything may not be, we cannot conduct a research study. Particularly the problems or questions which are of moral or ethical nature, although provocative. It is sometimes provocative and we really feel that it should be researched, but these are incapable of being researched. For example, if we talk about assisted suicide or euthanasia, if we ask the question, should euthanasia or assisted suicide be legalized? So if such question, if you are going to ask, it will be just opinion of the people. You cannot say that this is researched. Just everybody will be giving their opinion, that somebody may say yes, it should be legalized, somebody may say it should not be legalized, right? So those type of the questions are incapable of being researched. So same example I have given, that should assisted suicide be legalized, this problem is suitable to debate, so it can be debated but not to research. Another example, what effect early discharge has on patients' well-being? Now here, if we use the well-being is a very vague term. We cannot we cannot measure it, we cannot research it. So you need to define that what is meant by well-being of the patient. Is it a physical well-being, and if physical well-being, how it will be measured? So you need to think that whatever topic you are deciding for your research study, is it really researchable or not? Another very important characteristics of a good research problem is feasibility of addressing the problem. If you think that your topic is very good, but is it feasible for you to conduct the study? Do you have all the resources available to conduct the study? That also has to be taken care. First thing is, you have to take care of time and timings. So if you have taken a very long research study or longitudinal research study, and you don't have time for conducting the study for a long period, then it is of no use. You have to see while deciding your research topic that whether your research study will be completed within the time frame which is available to you. For example, for you undergraduate students, you have around 6 to 7 months only, and you may have for the data collection only 1 or 2 months. Will you be able to do that research study within that time or not? Second one is availability of study participants. So whatever research topic you are selecting, your population or your subjects, maybe you select the subjects of a certain particular disease or with the certain characteristics, but will you be getting those participants easily? It is very easy to conduct the study on, for example, you want to do the study on a university student. You can simply go and provide them the questionnaire and they can give you. At a time, you can get the survey done on 100 or 150 students very easily. But what about certain patients, like for example, if you talk about the patients with cystic fibrosis or the caregivers of HIV positive patients, it may be difficult for you to locate those participants. So you need to ask this question, that whether the study participants on which you are thinking of conducting the study, will they be available to you? Or if they are available, will they be ready to participate in your study? So that is also a question. Sometimes study participants may not be ready to participate, and sometimes you may think of providing some incentive if they will be participating in your study. So there, do you have the money to provide them incentive? That also has to be asked. This is cooperation of the others, means the study participants, will they be cooperating with you? Like for example, if you want to collect the data where you want their half an hour or 1 hour. For example, if you want to study nurses in the clinical area, they'll be providing you the self report, right? You provide them a questionnaire and they have to fill it, and that questionnaire is of 60 items, and you want them to fill that questionnaire in front of you in the hospital only and give it back to you. Will they be cooperating with you? Because they'll be very busy working in the clinical area. So you have to see that if I am thinking of conducting a study, whether the participants will cooperate with me or not. Then facilities and equipments. If you are thinking of conducting a study where you need specific type of equipments, do you have the availability of the equipment? Will you be buying that equipment, or your institution is already having that equipment, and do you have the permission to use that equipment or not? If you have to take on rent that particular equipment, will you be able to do that? So think of whatever equipments, whatever facilities you will be needing for that. Then money. Like I told you, sometimes you may need to provide some incentive to the subjects to participate in your study. But what about the money? Do you have that money? Have you got any funding for that? Second thing is, you will be needing money for the stationery, for getting the photocopies, for your documentation, papers. So number of items might be needed for which you need money. So you have to think that whether you are having availability of the equipment and the money through which you can buy those things. Then experience of the researcher. All the researchers may not be expert in all the fields. You should always take the research topic only from your own area in which you have the expertise. Or if you are a student and your mentor is there, your mentor's expertise should be taken care, because the mentor will be advising you, he will be guiding you to conduct the research study. So the research study should be based upon his expertise. Then is ethical consideration. So whatever research topic you are selecting, you have to think of the ethics of human ethics and rights of the humans and animals. Particularly, we conduct the study on patients. So you have to take care of the patient rights. So your study should not be infringing upon the rights of the patients, and particularly vulnerable population. So always think of all these areas while selecting your research problem. So any research problem, even though after looking at it you feel that it is a good problem, but till the time it is not researchable, it is not amenable to research, or it is not feasible for you, it is of no use. So if you have not thought of it, Once you will start collecting the data, then you will encounter many problems. So always beforehand you have to think of all these areas, and then you finalize your research problem. Another important area which you need to take care is interest to the researcher. So whatever research study you are taking, you should have interest. You should have curiosity about the research problem which you have taken for your research study. If you are not interested, then you will not give your 100% to conduct that study. So that is of no use. So always, although your research study looks good, it is feasible, it is researchable, but if you are not interested, then you will not be successful in conducting that study fully. Because a great deal of time and energy are expended in a study, there is little sense devoting these personal resources to a project that does not guarantee enthusiasm. So if you are not interested in it, then you will not be enthusiastic to conduct this study. So always take care that whatever study topic you are selecting, you should be interested in conducting that research study. So with this, our characteristics of a good research problem are over. Now let us move forward to the another topic, that is research objectives. What is a research objective? Research objective is a clear, concise, declarative statement which provides direction to investigate the variable. So research objective is a clear and concise statement. It is not in a question form. It is a clear declarative statement where we write it in a form that what are we going to do and what are we going to achieve by investigating the concepts or variables of your research study. And research objectives are results sought by the researcher at the end of research process. So whatever results we are seeking by conducting this study is written in the form of the research objectives, what the researcher will be able to achieve at the end of the research study. So objective should be closely related to the statement of the problem. So whatever statement we have given for our problem, objectives should be based upon that only. Now let us talk about what are the characteristics of research objectives. First one is specific. Whenever you are writing your research objective, your research objectives should be specific. It means it should be very precise and clear that what exactly you are going to do. It should be very clear. There should not be any confusion or ambiguity while you are writing those declarative statements. Second one is measurable. How will you know when you have achieved your aim? So whenever you are writing the objective, whatever variables you are talking about, it should be measurable. How you will be achieving that we should be able to measure. Third one is attainable. Make sure that you are not overly ambitious. Write the objective in that form only so that you will be able to achieve that objective in the end of your research study. Then is realistic. Recognize the time and resource constraints. So whenever you are writing your objectives, see that it should be feasible for you to achieve that particular objective. It should be a realistic objective. You recognize the time and resource constraints and don't attempt to do too much. Don't write a statement of the objective which you will not be able to achieve in the end. Then is time bound. Determine when each objective needs to be completed. So usually there are 3 or 4 objectives and first objective will be conducted first, then second, then third. So time also has to be determined that when you will be doing the action related to your first objective, when you will be doing your second and third, and how much time totally it will be taking. Will you be able to complete everything whatever you have written in your objective? So always remember that these characteristics of the research objectives should be taken care. And you can remember SMART. That is S for specific, M for measurable, A for attainable, R for realistic, and T for time bound. Now, many a times students have these queries in their mind that what is the difference between general versus specific objective. So let us see what is a general objective. General objectives are statement of intent. Overall, broadly, what are we going to do in our research study? So they are usually written in broad terms and they set out what you hope to achieve at the end of the project. So overall, only one aim or one general objective is written, where we write that what are we going to achieve through this research study. But what are the specific objectives? Specific objectives break down the general objective into smaller. Please remember, these are the smaller parts of the general objective, and these are logically connected parts. Logically, there is some logic that why are we breaking down our general objective and how are we going to connect that, right? That systematically address the various aspects of the problem. So maybe we are trying to study the problem, but how exactly we are going to study, that will be shown in our specific objective. Your specific objectives should specify exactly what you will do in each phase of your study. What will be done in the first phase, what will be done in the second phase, how it will be done, where it will be done, and when it will be done. So everything, and for what purpose it will be done. So everything is very clear in the specific objectives. So I hope you have understood. So general aim is always one, which is always given in the broader term, that by doing this research study, what you will be achieving in the end. And specific objectives can be 2 or 3 or more, depending upon whatever you are doing in your study. So you break it down into the smaller parts, and it exactly tell you that what type of particular activities you will be following while conducting your research study. So let us see one example. For example, this is the research question, that what is the effectiveness of nurse-led interpersonal psychotherapy in reducing the severity of postpartum depression? So here we would like to see that what is the effect of interpersonal psychotherapy, which is particularly nurse-led, and how is it affecting the postpartum depression severity. Right, so we are having two variables. One is nurse-led interpersonal psychotherapy, which is a independent variable, and postpartum depression is your dependent variable. Now, what is a general objective? General objective can be one, because our main purpose is that we want to assess the effectiveness of nurse-led interpersonal psychotherapy on postpartum depression. But what will be our specific objectives? Specific objectives, number one, we will be conducting the depression test of the postpartum women at the first phase. So we will be assessing the pre-test score of depression among postpartum women who will be participating in our research study. Second one is to provide the nurse-led interpersonal psychotherapy to women with postpartum depression. So this is our second objective. Third one is to assess the effectiveness of nurse-led interpersonal psychotherapy by comparing the pre-test and post-test scores of depression among postpartum women. So in the third phase, we will be assessing that whether the nurse-led interpersonal psychotherapy was able to reduce the depression in the women by comparing the pre-test and post-test scores. So these are the specific objectives. All these three objectives are clearly showing that in first phase, what are we going to do? In the second phase, we will be providing the intervention, and in third phase, we will be comparing. So specific objectives are broken down into the different parts, depending upon that what type of activities you will be conducting in order to achieve the overall objective. Okay, now let us move towards the next topic of today's lecture, that is research hypothesis. Now, what is a hypothesis? A hypothesis is nothing but it is a prediction about the relationship between two or more variables. So what type of relationship we are predicting between the variables, that is the hypothesis. A hypothesis thus translates a quantitative research question into a precise prediction of expected outcome. So whatever research question is there, we just write that into our prediction of expected outcome. Always, one thing you need to remember, that always the hypotheses are based upon the previous knowledge. So whatever you study in the literature about the relationship in the earlier studies, based upon that we make the hypothesis. Now, how the hypothesis is derived? It can be derived either inductively or deductively. So inductive hypothesis is a generalization which is based upon observed relationship, and researcher observes certain patterns or trends or association among phenomena and then use the observation as a basis of prediction. So for example, a nurse keeps on observing in the clinical area that this particular trend is happening every time. So based upon these small observations, she can predict that always whenever this particular situation will be there, then these will be the predicted outcomes. So that is known as the inductive hypothesis. Related literature should be examined to learn what is already known on a topic, but an important source for inductive hypothesis is personal experience. So rather than only literature, whatever we are personally experiencing and which is combined with our intuition and critical analysis, because whenever we see some patterns or some observations which are happening again and again, then we will be using our intuition and we will be critically analyzing, and based upon that we can predict. So that is known as inductive hypothesis. Now what is a deductive hypothesis, or the hypothesis which is based upon the deduction? Deduction is that a researcher can develop the hypothesis based upon general theoretical principles. Already something universal is known to everybody, or some theories are there. Based upon that, we know that this particular behavior is explained by this particular theory. So generally we know that this should be done, and based upon that we make a hypothesis. So deductive hypotheses have a starting point theories that are applied to particular situations. And now let us talk about the characteristics of good hypothesis. A good hypothesis is always worded in a simple, clear and concise language. So always whenever you write a hypothesis, please see that whatever language you are using, it should be very simple, clear and concise. It should be concise. Second is, it should be specific enough so that readers understand what the variables are and whom researchers will be studying. Your hypothesis should include all the variables and also on whom you are conducting the study, means your subjects. So that also should be very clear in your hypothesis. Now let us talk about the different types of the hypothesis. First one is simple and complex hypothesis. Now what is a simple hypothesis? Simple hypothesis is a hypothesis that expresses an expected relationship between one independent variable and one dependent variable. So here only one independent and one dependent variable should be there, not more than one. But in complex hypothesis, it can be a prediction of a relationship between two or more independent variables and two or more dependent variables. So here you may have more than one independent or more than one dependent variable for which you are trying to find out the relationship. Now let us see the examples of the simple and the complex hypothesis. For the simple hypothesis, you can see this is a hypothesis that patients receiving a warm solution for body cavity irrigation during surgical procedures will maintain a high core body temperature than patients receiving a room temperature solution. Now here you have one variable, one dependent variable and one independent variable. So here your warm solution, right? Not warm solution means your solution's temperature, whether it is a warm or it is a room temperature. So solution at a certain temperature is your independent variable and your dependent variable is core body temperature. So this is a type of a simple hypothesis because here you are having one independent variable and one dependent variable. Now let us see what is a complex hypothesis. Among breast cancer survivors, emotional well-being is influenced by women's self-esteem, their resourcefulness, and their degree of social support. Now, here you can see that you are having this independent variable, but your influence this is emotional well-being is your dependent variable, but it is influenced by a number of variables, that is self-esteem, resourcefulness, degree of social support. So where there are more than one variable, one independent variable, or more than one dependent variable, then it is always a complex hypothesis. Next classification is directional versus indirectional hypothesis. A directional hypothesis is one that specifies not only the existence but the expected direction of the relationship between variables. So here always the direction of relationship is also specified. Means simply this is not that this is related, that this particular variable is related with this. No, here we try to give the expected direction of the relationship also, that whether it will increase something independent variable will increase the dependent variable or decrease, like that, or whether there is a positive relationship, negative relationship, that will be given in the directional hypothesis. For example, patients receiving a warm solution for body cavity irrigation during surgical procedure will maintain a higher core body temperature than patients receiving a room temperature solution. So this is a type of directional hypothesis, because here they are saying that if a warm solution is used, they will have a higher core body temperature. It means it is giving a direction that in the dependent core body temperature, the body temperature will increase. So that is the type of direction which this particular hypothesis is showing. Another type of a hypothesis is non-directional hypothesis. A non-directional hypothesis, by contrast, does not stipulate the direction of the relationship. So here we do not give any direction of the relationship. So here the same example which I have given earlier. So it is simply saying that one variable is influenced by another 2 or 3 variables, or another one variable also it can be influenced. But here we are not saying that what type of influence. Is it improving the emotional well-being or decreasing the emotional well-being? So here we are not getting any direction. So then this is called as a non-directional hypothesis. Another classification is research versus null hypothesis. Research hypothesis is also known as substantive or declarative or scientific hypothesis, and these are the statement of expected relationship between the variables. So we state that what do we expect the relationship between the variables under study. But whereas null hypothesis always tells us that there is no relationship between the independent and dependent variable. Null hypothesis is also known as statistical hypothesis. Why is it called as statistical hypothesis? Because till the time we have not conducted any study, we always assume that there is no relationship. And after statistical tests, then we see whether there is any relationship or not, then we accept or reject our null hypothesis. So null hypothesis will show always that there is no relationship or there is no significant difference, like that the wording will be there. Hypothesis testing is what? Hypothesis is always tested through the statistical procedures. So whatever hypothesis we have formed, we try to test it through the statistical procedures. And researchers seek to determine through the statistics whether their hypotheses have a high probability of being correct. So through that statistical test, we try to find out that whatever hypothesis we have made, is it correct or not. However, we never use the word that hypotheses are proved. No, we use the word after testing that whether the hypothesis is accepted or supported. So if we have written that there is some relationship between two variables, and we found after conducting the statistical procedure that there is a relationship, then we will accept our hypothesis, and if we found there was no relationship, then we will say that we will reject the hypothesis. So that is the hypothesis testing, which is done through the statistical procedures. So with this, our lecture on the formulation of research problem, formulation of objectives, and formulation of hypothesis is over. Now let's recapitalize our lecture. So we have talked about the research question. So research question is a specific query that researcher want to answer in addressing the research problem. And in quantitative study, research questions usually are about the existence, nature, strength, and direction of the relationship. But what is a hypothesis? It is a statement of predicted relationship between two or more variables. You can have simple and complex hypotheses. You can have directional and non-directional hypotheses, research and null hypothesis. And also we talked about the research objectives. Thank you.